Hi there folks, Jonathan Wilson, Togaman GuitarViols. Today I'm going to talk a bit about the various string configurations and tunings of GuitarViols, but first I'm going to start with its core. Basically, this is a guitar viol. It is a 6-stringed, bowed-stringed instrument tuned just like a guitar. This is a 21st century version of the arpeggione, originally from Johann Stouffer back in 1829. I believe that the arpeggione the name may suggest that you have guitar tuning and you can really do some nice arpeggios. So we can take a garden variety. There's your D chord there. It's really good for that. And I've done this in various other variations. For example, this is E to E, but I've also done B to B. Heard a lot on the famous Game of Thrones. And of course the world thinks that those are cellos. The intro theme, to be clear, is not a real cello or one of these. But a lot of the episode underscores are for all the seasons. You'll hear one of these tuned into the B to B range. Now, often I am asked to do a 7-string version, and it's been no for a long time. I'm going to go into that in a little bit, and of course we may talk about how that may become a reality. First of all, I'm going to go over here though and grab, this is the Pomposa 5, which is essentially the same dimensions. This one's got a nice little top on it, by the way. But this is a 5-string tuned in cello tuning, so we can go C. So we've got basically C, G, D, A, E. So we got that nice range. And that's good news for people who are maybe a cello, viola, or violin convert, in terms of format. Now these are designed for sitting down with this leg peg under the right leg, and this little cutaway here, this little scoop here goes on the left leg, so we can get a nice little sitting position. I don't get everything on camera, we'll go into that in another thing, but or I can push down. Anyway, so this is like a cello, and the difference is, unlike the arpeggione or guitar tuning, is that you get very good scale. As far as chords go, you get very limited chords. You don't have as many polyphonic options as you do on the other tuning layout, but you have scale efficiency and range, and for some people that's the right fit. Now, the idea of taking that same range, in this case C, but we go down to B and do a 7-string guitar with a low B, basically. So what we would be doing in this case is taking, 6 and making it 7, right? And I want to talk about that a little bit. Now, these things are very deliberately engineered, and I don't just make one-off builds of just a wooden one and the fingerboard and maybe tie around frets or and this is a completely different topic, but it does tie together. In the earlier fingerboards from almost 20 years ago, and even almost 30 years ago on the first thing, but these were, it had a limited amount of curvature and it had the metal frets. Great if you're using guitar strings and that kind of thing. Horrible if you want to use, cello strings, which will wear them out. We went to a different embedded type some years back, and was doing CNC. Didn't like it. Didn't work out. It was just a ton of work. and it just was very difficult to repeat, and especially when you're dealing with woods that dimensionally can change with climate and humidity. So I went over to something that was more of a higher performance fingerboard, and this is the Viol Glide. By the way, these little dots all glow in the dark. It's pretty cool. But anyway, this I'm able to do with precision, with a nice scuff resistant surface that actually has a very low zero friction feel to it, because I like to do guitar like vibratos as well as classical vibratos, all in the same phrase. So we can do like a blues bend and do a little shake there, or we can kind of do a little gliss or whatever we want to do. So it's pretty versatile that way. But as far as being able to repeat these fingerboards with precision every month, and that's the other rub I've got to address here. So when people ask me to do a 7-string, it's a little more complex in this context of what I do very deliberately, and that is I'm not just going to build a one-off, which takes a lot of just a lot of engineering into it. When I've got like a fleet of 30 or so a year of the other ones, of the 6-stringers, typically, to build in a year, and people want it yesterday. It's a bit like Ferrari, where it's not like a showroom where you just come in and you walk out with one. It's a process. We have to actually go into a project with it. Now, it also goes into those similar things with finishes. If I do more ornate finishes, that means I get 1 out a month, not the 3 a month I need to get out. And so basically, yeah, it has a domino effect in the whole waiting queue. We don't have a big factory here. We're not like some huge thing. So it is very expensive month to month to do all this kind of stuff. So if I go into an engineering rabbit hole and I really want to be able to focus on it, and I blow everything off, suddenly all the pink slips start coming into the mail, and I've got to avoid that too. So it's a very delicate balancing act. So if I say no to doing a 7-string, which let's see what we can do about making that a yes, and I'm going to go into that in a second. But in reality, the technicality is not just about making a bigger, slightly wider bridge. We want this to all work out. You can see that this is not just radius. This is very deliberately engineered. When I designed this fingerboard geometry many years ago, and this was after I was really frustrated with the limitations of this. We were only able to bend fret wire so far before it misbehaved. Getting the complex geometry by hand every time was no joke, no picnic. So basically, you could see that there's a little more steepness on the bass side than there is on the treble. And then to be able to have strings lay flat at every point, it's a real complex piece of geometry, and it has to work, and it has to come off every time. CNCs are not good for that, by the way. Just trust me. So went into a more of a composite molding process where we're layering up carbon fiber. This was a test from 2016 when I first had the mold that I made. And that's a big process itself. Basically, I had to make a very precise positive of this. But that, arriving at that was not just random. What that meant was I literally took an instrument years ago and designed the bridge first. I had an adjustable bridge in every direction and arrived at what was going to work very well. Okay. The next thing was we had to design the fingerboard, basically work backwards from that to make the fingerboard shape. Well, that is a whole process. It's a chicken and the egg problem. Do you build the instrument first and then work out the bugs, or do you, it's one of those things where it's not an accident. And unfortunately, I see a lot of builds out there that some of them are starting to look suspiciously like mine lately. But really, it doesn't have that stuff engineered into it. It's just generally the straight up radiuses or whatever. And When you're dealing with strings on the bass side, for example, they need to have a little more press down room, because they're a little slacker than the treble side is. So basically, you can see that these patterns are not exact, radiuses. They're more of, like a hyperbolic ellipse or whatever you want to call it. This here is basically a hyperbolic paraboloid with Pythagorean divisions. Yeah, Pythagoras actually is the one who worked out these little half steps, guitar fretting and stuff like that. And so, because of my unreasonable caveats for being able to have this thing play in tune, play really with the most ease in a lot of ways, and be effective on all strings, it really, I don't like just do it halfway. So for me to say, well, I'm going to build a 7-string for you, and then that's just going to take a lot of, like I said, off-road engineering. And right now as it is, and I'm going to give a quick mention to, we're also going into composite builds and directions of other things. I talk about this on another video. So anyway, basically what I have to do is to be able to take all the hours that go into making another fingerboard pattern, and you can see the white here represents what the 7 would be, to get the string spacing right based on the data I have and what I know. There would be a little bit more back and forth going on. So there's also the other aspect, which on the tops I've got to like move where the actual bass bar is, just because it's going to be a little wider. So I have to repattern the top. And the other concern that I had too, especially with the acoustics, I mean, electric's easy, you can just take a plank of wood, that's another story. And then of course the bridge on that one's another very complex story. And right now those are off the menu for a bit. But anyway, when we went to these wooden tops, which you see here, modern bowed strings, if you have 4 of them on a violin, that's one thing. It's very, it's a lot of tension for those instruments. More so than, like, say, the gut strings of a long time ago. Of course, nothing sounds like the modern ones as far as performance goes and sound. So when you're taking all those strings and you're going on to like a thin acoustic top, then we've got to re-engineer all that. So again, it's a whole grab bag of different rabbit holes they have to go down just to engineer it into the 7, which I can totally do, and I love doing this stuff. It's just that, again, taking all those off-road hours to do it. So to do this, and I just wanted to mention too, is going into these other composite tops. I have one here that's looks just kind of like that one. This one's a sort of a test dummy, but this is one that is a 6-string version of it, and you can see it's got this kind of wood. We're able to do this because I'm using carbon graphite in this case, or going into flax and hemp. Those can take the pressure better. So maybe now is a good time to actually address the 7-string. But first of all, I want to, you might want to ask yourself why. Is it that you really want the polyphonic aspects of what the 6-string has to offer in terms of chord spread? The notes can get a little more clunkier in the lower range, but there's some pretty cool sounds to be had. Or is it just the range itself that you were after? Because if you're after that, you may consider the 5, the Pomposa. Okay? And this will at least, you won't have as much of the, the chord mapping that you do on the 6. Of course, you can tune it like a guitar too, but my point is that if you really are after the range, though, doing it in the 5ths, you can get it down to 5 strings. So you have the common, high E string common to both of them. This one just has the low D as opposed to the low E. So this puts you into that range. Now, if you really want that low B, the B to B thing that we were doing, or the B with a high E, That's a lot, you know, it's a bunch of strings, which is cool. And if that's going to work for your art, that's great. But I just wanted to at least throw that out there to give you sort of some things to consider. Now, to do this, for me to go into this 7 and take the engineering off-road hours, I have to address, you know, monthly expenses that can be 16 to 20 grand a month, if, you know, depending on what things happen. Now, if I have to not ship for a while I'm doing all this kind of stuff, that means I have to have enough orders in the system to do it. I think I'm going to go by, let's see, the rule of 7. So, a few little funny little tidbits of trivia which will make it kind of fun. So the scale on my instruments is 21 inches, and I arrived at that because it was more of an ergonomic thing. So when I was sitting down, the eye level of the nut was pretty much such that you know, it was comfortable. And I did this you know, from a completely ergonomic standpoint. And by the way, the first instruments were made for myself. They weren't made for the public. People just asked me to build them, and I kept building them. And I kept very, very on the, you know, topic of what I was going for. So this particular thing is 21 inches, divisible by 7, of course. And earlier examples, I had sort of a radius at the nut, which was 7.75. So this one's 7.77, which turned out to be a wonderful spec. So I think we're going to keep that going. And on the rule of 7, if I can get 7 orders together, that would get me started. I really need to get about 21 orders of 7-string instruments. So if you want to do this, if you're really serious, we can make some 7 strings. Okay, they're going to be $7,777, rule of 7, each, and in, you know, 3 rounds of, I think it's like 2,700 bucks, 3,000-ish. So we're getting close, but to get that, it's the same process as it is to build the other ones. So there may be anywhere from a 14 to 21 month window to get that fulfilled. And basically what that means is that, you know, I got to close down other production just to get the tooling to make the 7, okay? So it's not just like we just, you know, keep on shipping and then all that stuff magically happens at night. Doing this kind of thing, you really have to be 100% coffee on the game, you know what I'm saying? So, but anyway, so we could do the 7. Let me know, and I'm going to put more information up about this on the website and on the let's say the other little blogs and the Instas and things like that. So anyway, the rule of 7, or in a shorter period of time, we can build to the 6 or the 5. The Pomposa. Anyway, those are the options. Have an exceedingly awesome day. Be inspired.